gentlemen, we are back on the Urban Conservative. You know what it is. Thank you so much for supporting what we do here. We got a alumnus back on the program, someone who is no stranger to the platform. Wanted to bring the good brother Craig Scott back on. We're just coming off of a major event in Greensboro. Yeah. Super exciting times. The new Leadership Summit in Greensboro, North Carolina, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're talking about. First and foremost, let's go back, bro. Let's before we talk about other stuff, let's go back. Sir. What was the real kind of creative force behind putting the event together for the folks to know? What was the impetus for putting that together?
Well, just like the title of the event says, it's about introducing the need for new leadership and showcasing some of that new leadership. In the person, of course, of Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, also State Representative Ken Fontenot, brothers like yourself, you know what I mean? And just showing the people that, we've got a fresh batch of leaders that are ready to go and taking this state forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things, a big part of that conference and that leadership summit revolved around the citizens only voting thing that's getting pushed in North Carolina right now. I know you and Paul and folks on the team are working real hard to work with our legislators. And Mark even had some things to say about citizens only voting. Before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit more about the event. What was the most exciting part of the event for you?
Well, of course, I'm going to say, my opportunity to speak. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. My name is Craig Scott. And when it comes to the issue of citizens only voting, I am on fire. And I'm going to share some of that fire with you today. I want to start and I want to bring your attention to this piece of paper that I have here. After I was released, after doing 26 years in federal prison on a 52-year sentence due to the atrocious crime bill that Joe Biden and Bill Clinton put into effect. After being released through the law that Donald Trump passed, President Trump passed, I still had to wait 3 years before I was allowed to vote. After those 3 years, I had to go to the county court and file for what I thought was a restoration of my voting rights. So I go to the county court and they hand me this piece of paper. And I pay attention to what it's actually called. This is a certificate of restoration of citizenship. I said, whoa, citizenship. So wait a minute now. I was born in America. My mother and father were American. My grandmother and my grandfather were American. I've even met my great-grandmother who was American. But after I was released from prison, I had to take steps in order to become a citizen in order to vote. So you can imagine how fired up I am about an idea put forth by the liberals of the Democrat Party that non-citizens can walk into the country, show no allegiance, have no roots, have no connection with America, and automatically be allowed to vote. I'm fired up about that. Now, we have to ask ourselves, well, why would the liberals of the Democrat Party do this? Well, I'm going to tell you what my theory is. After the election of Donald Trump and the presidency of Donald Trump, and the fact that he actually did something substantial for the black community, black and brown Americans started voting for Republicans and saying that they're going to vote for Trump again. Huh? And when the liberals heard that, look how attached they are to power. They say, well, we've got to replace them. And the strategy is to replace Black American, Latino American voters with non-citizens, many of them illegal, just so they can hold on to power. Now, if we allow that to occur, guess who's going to be the first casualties of that program? Black and brown representatives in the state and local governments. Huh? You're going to be the first people to get the axe. Now, unfortunately, our African American legislators in Georgia didn't see the trick. But due in part to a lot of the effort that Becky Arps of ACV put down in South Carolina, she was able to convince 10 Democrats to vote for citizens-only voting amendment. Guess what? Yeah, give her a round of applause. She definitely deserves it. But guess what? Out of those 10 Democrats, 6 of them were African American. Oh, yeah, wake up. What happened? I think that they understand that they are being asked by their liberal colleagues to shoot themselves in their own foot by voting against citizen-only voting. But these 6 African Americans said, we're not going for that. No, we are going to vote for this. We think only Americans ought to be allowed to vote. So we have a similar initiative in place here in North Carolina. They're about to vote on this same situation. Listen, it is so important for the right to vote to be the exclusive right of American citizens. Yes, please applaud that. Why? Because in our hands, we can make sure that strong American leaders get sent to government. Strong American leaders like Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, huh? Strong American leaders like our brother Ken Fontenot, sitting right here today, huh? Here's a brother who is committed to legislation and policy that's designed to strengthen the Black and brown family here in North Carolina. I call that strong leadership. Only with that vote exclusively in the hands of Americans can we send strong leadership like Abdul Ali to the U.S. Congress. He's running for the 12th district. But we can't send that kind of strong leadership to the government if our right to vote is diluted by giving it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that crosses the border. Huh? We can't allow that. Listen, but bring your attention back to this little paper that I had to file. I want you to tell your family and your friends, call your North Carolina representatives, and demand that they vote for that initiative, SB 630, Citizen-Only Voting Amendment. Demand that they vote for that. Why? So that we, the formerly incarcerated Americans, aren't the only people in America that have to be citizens before we can vote. Thank you.
But I'm gonna tell you, I really enjoy your presentation. I love how just down to earth you are with the people, and you know, you kill it every time. You know what I mean? So that was exciting to see. We also had panels in the second half of the event that was amazing. I mean, the brothers and sisters that were on those panels. They knew exactly what they were talking about. They all had experience in the areas that they were addressing. So that was really exciting to see as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to Mr. Kevin McCain, who was the brain of all of that. You know, he really pulled it off. So it was very good.
Kevrick, shouts out to Kevrick. Okay. So this event, and I'll tell you, one of the takeaways that I got from the event and something that I heard, there are some issues that affect minority communities that I like to call bridge issues that are easy for those who are conservative minded, typically, I won't say hardcore Republicans, but maybe people who have a different political disposition. It's easy to talk to other folks about two issues. One of those issues is obviously wanting only American citizens to vote. But you talked about an issue which is criminal justice reform, which is an issue. I think the restoration of rights is something that definitely is a real easy conversation to have, unfortunately, because of the number of black men that are affected by the criminal justice system. So for me, that was a highlight and something that I think gets really not talked about as much as it should in our community. But the second part of that was the citizens only voting being a real bridge issue. And there were a lot of young people in the room. What do you chalk up the excitement of young people around the issue, like wanting citizens only to vote? Why do you think that's resonating with the young folks that are there?
I think young people are going to be more engaged, especially in this upcoming election cycle, because one, they're beginning to become pretty disillusioned and dissatisfied with the political situation that they basically find themselves in. And they don't have the direct connection and experience with how things used to be. So they're far more open to, moving in an entirely different direction. So, I think that that's a part of their excitement and eagerness to listen to just different, different views and different perspectives. Now, when it comes specifically to the issue about non-citizens voting, they are probably, like most people, under the impression that it's already illegal, if you will, for non-citizens to vote. But they don't understand that there's actually a push coming from the other major political party to try to make it legal for non-citizens to vote. And so our job at Americans for Citizens Voting is to educate them, one, on that movement, that it exists, and two, how it's going to directly ill affect them if they allow it to happen. So I think when they begin to hear how these things are directly affecting them, their ears are definitely perking up and they're very open to receiving it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the Urban Conservative. We're talking with Craig Scott about the North Carolina's new leadership summit that went down in April here in North Carolina. What's going on with this citizens-only voting amendment that's being proposed in the North Carolina legislature, and so much more. Y'all don't go nowhere. We'll be back on the Urban Conservative. When those who are in our country illegally cast a ballot, it takes the power of your vote away. Visit onlycitizens.vote to find out how you can contact your legislature and get them to pass a citizens-only voting amendment. Again, visit onlycitizens.vote and defend your right to vote. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the Urban Conservative. We're here with alumni of the show, our good friend Craig Scott. We're talking about the North Carolina's new leadership summit that went down in Greensboro. We're talking about citizens-only voting and a bunch of other stuff. So let's go back real quick. One of the things that was discussed at these panels was how people can get more involved and engaged and that kind of thing. And this issue of citizens only voting seems to be a really good kind of bridge issue, if you will. What's been your kind of reception as you're out and about talking to people about this particular issue? And would you agree that it's a real bridge issue, that like this is something conservatives, legislators, people, grassroots folks need to be taking up?
Our experience, because we've been doing a lot of canvassing on this issue, specifically in North Carolina and Georgia. And what we're finding is a lot of people just aren't aware that this is a major issue going on. But once we basically talk to them about it and explain to them about Maryland, Maine, DC, California, having already passed laws that will allow non-citizens to vote, that kind of piques their interest, lets them know that this is real. It's not a hoax. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Right.
This stuff is really, happening. So once we educate them on that, I think, like you said, just across the board, people begin to respond, pretty positively about it. But the first step is to, make them aware of it.
One of the interesting things, because we run the commercial, shouts out to Paul and Kevrick for the love, but we do run the commercials here on our platform. And one of the interesting things is people say, well, citizens already can't vote. And then when you point out where they can, they're like, well, that's local. I'm like, well, wait. Now we're pushing the envelope.
Right.
Like that.
Man, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, you want to push the envelope. No, but that's only school board. That's only, the DC. That's only, like, wait a minute. Exactly. So, I think you're right. I think that's an important factor that people need to consider is that, they shouldn't be voting at all.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because there was a recent article and it was coming from a mainly Democrat slant. And interestingly enough, usually they start out by making that statement, oh, well, non-citizens aren't voting, it's not illegal. But now that we've shown, though, that it's actually going on, now they've pivoted. And, well, non-citizens voting isn't widespread. So, they've got to change the goalposts, if you will, as the information is coming out that, no, this is actually something that is going on. So I think that was a very good point that you brought up.
Yeah, another version of it will be just a few weeks. If you just, so stay 6 feet away for 6 weeks. Exactly. It'll all be over sooner than later. So one of the things that you brought up, and I'm going to go back to this a little bit, is how you have those who may have been involved in, with the criminal justice system, with the justice system. And they have a process. In some cases, depending on the state, there's no real process, standardized process for people to regain their voting rights.
Right.
Well, what does that do to the morale of someone who may have made a mistake in their youth and has, lived a productive life, but is unable to, I would dare say, have one of the most sacred rights as a citizen, not respected as a result of making that mistake? What does that do? And is that something that's part of the movement? Is that a discussion that's part and parcel of the citizens only voting movement?
Well, I think, we are definitely touching on that issue. And I think because of my own personal experience with the criminal justice system, that was another reason why Paul Jacobs was eager to have me involved in this movement. But I think the most demoralizing aspect of being a person that's formerly incarcerated is that I think most of us, when we get out of prison, we automatically think that our rights are gone, never to return. The reality is that when I went down to the county clerk in order to restore my voting rights, one, I found out that actually I was restoring my citizenship. That was enlightening. And two, I found out that this is not happening. A lot of brothers and sisters are not going to the court to reinstitute their citizenship. So that says to me that they really probably believe that there's something that they can never get back again. So we really have to press that. I think we could even extend our canvassing to start educating the community about that. It's a difficult question to get into, of course, to ask someone about that. But I'm pretty sure there's a way that we can find out. And as soon as we can, yes, we've got to let our people know that, no, listen, after you have finished your probation, go to the clerk of courts and get your citizenship restored so that you can vote again. Okay.
Right on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Craig Scott. Americans for Citizens Only Voting. Y'all seen the commercial here on the platform. One of the biggest things we try to do here is talk about issues that have a real live day-to-day impact, but also one of the things is this is a historical type of deal that we're dealing with. looking at the 2024 elections, you talked about Mark Robinson. Obviously, you got Donald Trump, who did, I think, a great job on two fronts. One, on the justice system reforms that he did, and two, on immigration and this whole idea of, securing that southern border. What do you think the future holds for a country that allows people who haven't earned the right of citizenship to vote? What do you see in the future for, and I'm not saying for America that will continue, I'm keeping it real etheric there for you. But what do you see in the future if that's allowed to continue to happen?
I mean, basically, if that's allowed to happen, the entire reality of a nation state no longer exists. And unfortunately, there are segments of politics and society that are really honestly trying to destroy that whole thing, that whole institution of a state and of a country. And so any nation, like you said, has to have authority over who can and who cannot come into their country and who can and cannot become a citizen. That's just basic sovereignty, right? So we are being made to think that that's okay to do, to just give away your sovereignty, and it doesn't matter who's a citizen and who isn't. So we've definitely got to get our country back into a more sensible approach to what it means to be a country. Yeah, definitely.
Makes sense to me. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take one more quick break. Y'all don't go nowhere. Got a couple of other things we're going to talk about. We had Representative Fontenot there. We're going to talk about him on the other side of this. Y'all don't go nowhere. We'll be right back here on the Urban Conservative.
When those who are in our country illegally cast a ballot, it takes the power of your vote away. Visit onlycitizens.vote to find out how you can contact your legislature and get them to pass a citizens-only voting amendment. Again, visit onlycitizens.vote and defend your right to vote.
Y'all, we're back here on the Urban Conservative. Abdul Ali rocking with you. Got to give a big shout out to everybody in North Carolina. If you haven't done so already, May 14th is the primary runoff. You need to vote in that. And then after the primary is done, after the runoff's done, you need to be supporting your local, state, county, GOP, conservative club, Republican club, whatever it is that you participate in. Make sure you're jumping in, because candidates need your help. They need your time, talent, treasure, the 3 T's we call them around here. Well, speaking of candidates, a big shout out to Representative Ken Fontenot. He represents Wilson and Nash County in the North Carolina State Legislature, District 24. He gave a great presentation at the event, and I think it's helpful for young people to see that a brother can go to the state legislature from what he was dealing with. And let me ask you a question. Knowing that there are legislators like Representative Fontenot that are supportive of a citizens-only voting amendment, I think that North Carolina recognizes this an important issue. In states where these things are happening and in places where this isn't really so much of a topic for discussion, what do you think is the spread, the future look of the citizens-only voting thing? Where do you think you go from North Carolina, Georgia? Do you have any idea of next steps? Where's the next spots on the map to concentrate on, if you will?
Yeah. Well, I think overall there are at least 10 states that we're attempting to get the citizen-only voting amendment put into place. Right now, we have got Idaho, Iowa, Wisconsin, Kentucky, and just recently, I believe, South Carolina. And did I say Wisconsin already?
You said Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. And then there's a no. So I think we've got 6 so far.
Right.
So if we can get 4 more, we will reach our immediate goal of having at least 6 states put that on the ballot for the upcoming election. So that's where what we're aiming for.
Good. And I saw at the event they had a pamphlet showing how popular of an issue it is. When it's brought up, most people are like, "Duh."
Yeah, exactly.
Like, of course I want.
Of course, water is wet. Yeah. Okay.
So we've got, I think, a strong sense here in North Carolina that would be the same sentiment. People don't want non-citizens voting in elections. Let me ask this from the perspective of the folks that are involved in the movement that recognize the trouble. What's the easiest way to talk to their friends, family members that may not be as politically aware? What's the easiest way for them to kind of bridge that gap with somebody they're close with? What do you say to somebody to bring up the subject?
Well, I just hit them with the first shocker. They're assuming that only citizens vote in local and state elections. And so you start out with, shaking them awake to realize that no, actually, the Democrats are trying to make it so that non-citizens will be allowed to vote in state and local elections. So I think that's always a good opener. It's something that you can back up. Just Google it. It's right there. You know what I'm saying? So that's always something that's an easy way to start that conversation. And then once they begin to see, wait a minute, they even have a person elected over I believe it's the election commission in California somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're not a citizen.
Non-citizen.
They're actually holding office already. You know what I mean? So that is what lets them know that this is an immediate issue. And then my main thing is trying to, especially when speaking to minority communities, trying to explain to them that this is really working like an end run around the 1965 Voting Rights Act. It's a way to get rid of that law without having to say it outright.
Right.
Because the whole idea was we've got to pass a piece of legislation that makes it an enforceable right for Black Americans to be able to vote. Well, now you want to go and say, well, hey, any and everybody can have it. So at that point, I think that helps to wake a lot of people up, as well. And to the representatives, whether Democrat or Republican, who do you think these people are going to vote for, these non-citizens, if they are allowed to vote? You think they're going to send African-American representatives to represent them? Latino Americans to represent them? No, they're not. They're going to, most likely vote for people who reflect themselves. And that's not anything untoward about them. It's just how people vote as a community, right? Okay. So we've got to take that reality into consideration as well. And so that's something that I'll, always bring up also.
Excellent, excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Craig Scott, Americans for Citizens Only Voting. One other thing real quick. So we've got, I think, a few months until this election, the 2024 election. You've got Joe Biden, you've got Donald Trump, the nominees for each party. I'm hearing a lot of exhaustion both ways.
Right.
Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? There's that. But you got to think under a Trump presidency, we would get to solving the secure border.
Right.
We would get to solving some of these immigration issues sooner than later. We would see a lot more deportations.
Definitely.
Do you think that given that stance on what's happening at the border, would you be in favor of a complete shutdown on immigration for like 6 months? Just stop everything.
Someone talked about that, like a 1 year.
Just stop. Just stop.
I want to say it was a comedian, but somebody brought that up. We just need to, slow down. But I think even with that, inevitably we're going to have to correct the damage that's been done. So, will there have to be deportations, arrests, and things of that sort done? I believe you're just not going to be able to avoid it. It was just such a mass influx of people here that we don't even know who's here, that we've got to get control of that. And I think it's blatantly obvious that President Donald Trump is going to be far more aggressive in that direction than Joe Biden.
Right.
And what I really like is Black communities in Chicago and New York and other places are seeing firsthand that this massive opening of the border is ill affecting them first and foremost. And so I think that's been a wake-up call as well. And I think also Trump has made it clear, to that community that he's going to do something about it.
Right. Definitely. Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, thanks for rocking with us here on the Urban Conservative. We'll definitely have you back as things progress. We've got the short session going on here in North Carolina. What's next on the horizon for citizens only voting? What y'all got coming up?
We're working to get the ballot initiative SB 630 passed.
Okay, dope.
Shout out to Brad Overcash and the people who are sponsoring and authoring that initiative. So we're working and we're meeting with legislators in the state right now to try to get that initiative on the ballot. So that's our main thrust right now.
Nice, nice. All right, Craig, thank you for rocking with us here on the Urban Conservative. Ladies and gentlemen, give this a like, share, make sure you're subscribed, and if you haven't done so already, give a visit to onlycitizens.vote. That's the website to make sure that your state legislature is entertaining the idea of a citizens-only voting amendment. This is Abdul Ali rocking out with you on the Urban Conservative. For my twin brother Raheem, Architect Soto, y'all keep it positive and productive. Peace.